Good morning, students. Today we begin with the next topic, narration in history. In the last class, we were talking about narration in literature. We talked about different modes of narration given out by different theoreticians, including Roland Barthes, Gerard Jeunet, etc. Here, in this class, we will be studying narrations in history. So, when you come to history, it is all those real events of the past or present, and you understand that they cannot speak for themselves. They need a structure or a form of a story for presentation. You need to have a structure or a form to present those events which happened in the past. It can happen in the past or even in present. It is all those real events. So, what was real or reality in the past is available and accessible to the present only when they are presented to us in the specific forms. So, it needed to be presented in this specific form so that you can understand what happened then. You can understand what was real, the reality. It needs a form that explains the event to us so that it makes sense to us. We understand the causes and effects, and also we'll understand their significance in subsequent years. It needed a form to explain all these things. This is how we make sense or how we understand the cause and effect and how we understand the importance of that event which happened sometime in the past. For example, take a historical event such as 1857 Sepoy Mutiny, or it is termed as First War of Indian Independence. Actually, we cannot go back to those actual events, that is, which happened in 1857. It is completely unknowable for us. We have no clue of what happened during that time because we were born in a different age. So, in order to understand what happened in 1857, we need to reconstruct the events. We need to reconstruct all those events which happened in the past. And this process of reconstruction, or it can be called as an attempt to gain knowledge about it, the only way possible is through all those sources. It can be books, material objects, evidences of buildings, which we can collect from the past. And even then, we run into many problems. We have no clue about these questions like whether one event led to another. So if there is an event 1 and event 2, what is the cause and effect linkage of these two events? Whether event 2 happened and led to event 1 or vice versa, we have no idea about these things. So this linkage of 1 and 2 is based on, as you know, based on cause and effect. And it is something which imposes on the events of the past. In other words, we can say we need to assume that these events are connected, that event 1 and event 2 are connected. There is some kind of cause and effect relationship between two. So here the stressed word is assume. We assume. And this process of assumption or the process of this assuming act is some kind of bestowing story upon the events. You are placing a story, you are assuming a story. You place people, you place things, events within a structure that shows a cause and effect sequence. And as you know, even from the word itself, assumption, you will understand this is an act of imagination. So please note that even when you reconstruct the real events, there is always an element of imagination in it. It is what which gives this real event a form, a structure. It becomes a narrative with this act of imagination. So, as you know, this is somewhat similar to a novel, because in both cases we attribute causes, we try to understand the cause effect relationship, we develop stories, and we imagine links between characters, places, and events. We try to link all these things to create a story on this real event. Thus, we always place these events in a frame of what is known as interpretation, where we claim one led to two, event one led to two. And here, as I said earlier, we have produced a narrative. We have produced a narrative within this frame of interpretation, and all these historical events are made to speak a particular truth of the events. It talks about a particular truth, and particular truth in the sense that it is given out by the way we frame that event. The truth is spoken from the way we frame that truth. For example, in the case of this particular 1857 revolt, the British saw this events as a rebellion. That is why they termed it as Sepoy Mutiny. അവർ വിളിച്ചത് ശിപ്പായി ലഹള എന്നാണ്. While the Indian historians argued that it was our first war of independence, we term it as first war of independence. So, the truth of the events depends on the kind of narrative that this British and Indians impose on them. It depends on who wrote it. You will get only what is known as a particular truth about the event, not the one which is known as the real truth. So it is said that events do not write history, historians do, and therefore narratives construct the past. Even there, it is not a real recounting of all those actual events. Events do not write history. It is actually the historians who are writing the history, and there will be this act of interpretation of these individual historians, and it will be the representation of that particular truth, because even history is a narrative. Now we move to the three main modes of communicating events from the past. So these are the three main methods to write history. It is given out by Hayden White. These are the three main modes of communicating events from the past. First one, it is Annals Mode. As you see in this example, it is narrated simply as a form of listing important events. You see such kind of narration in all those history textbooks. In most of the time it will be in the front pages, or even in the back pages. It will be just a year and the main event happened. So that is known as Annals Mode. Simply in a form of listing all those important events, like 1600 East India Company was formed, 1660 what happened, 1757 Battle of Plassey, 1885 Indian National Congress was founded. So the basic things, basic events happen, most important events happen with no narration, no central theme or coherence. It will be something like in a chronological order. So that is annals mode. And then comes chronicle mode. Here we have a narration that offers the stories of the real events that happened, but they are something like unfinished stories. It is something like more comprehensive, which will have a central theme or subject, such as life of an individual, and it will be more ordered. So that is chronicle mode. So you can turn that above annals narrative, what you saw in annals mode, like 1600, East India Company was formed. So you can turn that into chronicle mode like this. This is the example. You can add more details. That is chronicle mode. So this is a form of representing events when the narrative is more comprehensive and it will have a central theme or subject. Now comes the next one and the third one, which is more important. This is the third type of narrating events of the past. It is historical narrative. In historical narrative, the events are conveyed to us in such a way that we wish to know more about them. Reality and real events are presented to us in a more attractive manner. It is more appealing. It gives us, and along with that, it will give us more meaning. It will add meaning to these events. As you see in this example, this is the exact thing what you saw in annals mode and chronicle mode, but here it is more in a detailed manner. In 1600, it starts like 1600, East India Company was formed by Queen Elizabeth for purposes of trade with East Indies in order to seek trade rights in 1616, and it goes on. So here there is a narrative, and at the end there will be something like closure of narration. All these events are narrated and they are concluded logically, and it offers us a sense of completion. Something like cause effect sequence will be given, and the significance of this event is offered to the reader, and the significance is highlighted not only with this recital of dates and events, but there is some kind of what is known as interpretation. In other words, we can say that historical narratives gives us more meanings. It is a kind of interpretation. It is not just giving out some information. History is made available to us in the form of interpretation. The past comes to us in the form of a story. That is why it is termed as historical narrative. So it will include characters, cause effect sequence, chronology. It will include all those larger themes and subjects. There will be a greater detailed description. Meanings are offered to the readers, and there is this element of interpretation. Now we come to the last part where we talk about the narrative modes in non-European cultures. So here we were talking about all those European method of producing and documenting history. Those three: annals mode, chronicle mode, and historical narrative. And in ancient Asian, including Hindu and Islamic, this method of recording history were very different. As you know, in ancient Asian, that is in Hindu method, there were use of lots of songs with refrains and personal biographies, and Also, different trajectories were pursued within the same story. Oral stories, we had oral stories recounting of personal biographies, and we have songs with refrains so that people can memorize, so that it can be passed on from one generation to another. So these methods were often fragmented stories. We have all those historical events which were woven into the personal stories of the authors. There will be a historical event and there will be an addition of personal element which is contributed by the author. And it was something like a compilation of many authors which led to room for all those contradictory opinions, interpretations. So it is something like a fragmented story where every author were free to add his or her opinions and interpretations. And we also have Islam, Hadith reports. It is something like individual accounts of the same event with little or no comments by the author. That is Hadith reports, and all those Hindu oral epics and African praise song for ancestors. These were also another modes of narrating the past. All those praise songs, oral epics, as you know, in Hindu epics. So these are the other methods of narrating history. I hope it is clear. Mainly, we were talking about three major modes: annals, chronicle, and historical narrative. Please read the textbook. Thank you, girls. Have a nice day.